Welcome to Lento English. Ready to level up your English? Here we learn through stories, slow, clear, and fun. Listen, relax, and enjoy the journey.
1. Introduction. Donald Trump became the President of the United States again. He won the election in November 2024. He received 312 electoral votes. He started his second time as president on January 20, 2025. It is not usual for a president to come back after being away for one term. Only one other president did this before in the history of the United States. This chapter looks at the first 100 days of his new time as president. This period saw many important events and changes in government plans. During these first 100 days, President Trump made many big decisions. His main plan was called America First. This idea means he wanted to put America's needs first, before the needs of other countries. This plan guided many of his actions. These actions often changed how the United States worked with the rest of the world. Some reports said his plans were even stronger than during his first time as president. One big change was about world trade. The government added new taxes, called tariffs, on many goods coming from other countries. This created some difficulties with countries that America usually trades with. People watched the world markets and worried about business growth. Another big change was in foreign relations, which means how America deals with other nations. The government changed how it spoke to old friends, like countries in Europe that belong to NATO. Some allies felt worried about these changes. There were also new talks about the war between Russia and Ukraine. The approach to this conflict seemed different from before. These fast changes made many governments feel uncertain. They did not always know what the American government planned to do next. Some countries that were usually friends with America felt concerned. Other countries watched the situation very carefully. This time showed a different way America might act in the world. This chapter will describe these events and policy shifts. It aims to explain what happened during these important first 100 days in a simple way. 2. President Trump's big plan. President Trump's second time in office started with a clear idea: America First. This plan guides many of his government's actions. It means that American interests and needs should always be the most important thing when making decisions, especially about other countries. This America First idea was also important during President Trump's first time as president, from 2017 to 2021. However, some people who watch politics closely say things are different now. They believe President Trump is acting more strongly on this idea than he did 8 years ago. One person who worked for past presidents said he was surprised by how much more radical President Trump seems now. The government led by President Trump has stated several main goals for this second term. They want to help end the war between Russia and Ukraine by bringing both countries together to talk. They plan to stop dangerous drugs, like fentanyl, from coming into the country. Protecting American jobs is another big goal, and the government says it will make sure China follows trade rules. They also want to put pressure on Iran to make new agreements. The government stated it will act against groups like the Houthis who cause trouble. Finally, making the border with Mexico stronger is a key part of the plan. Putting America first changes how the United States works with the rest of the world. President Trump often looks at international problems like business deals. He wants to make sure America gets a good result. This way of thinking can affect old friendships and agreements the U.S. has had with other nations for a long time. Some countries that have been friends with America feel worried about these changes. They say the focus on America first makes it harder to work together on world problems. Because of this plan, the usual ways countries work together are being shaken up. The world order, which is the set of rules and relationships built over many years, especially after World War II, feels less stable. Many governments are not sure what President Trump will do next or how his plans will affect them. This uncertainty makes some countries think about changing their own plans and relationships, possibly in ways that might last for a long time, even after President Trump leaves office. 3. Changes in world trade. The new government quickly made big changes to world trade rules. It introduced new taxes, called tariffs, on many goods coming into the United States from other countries. This was a very big change and started what some called a global tariff war. The government explained that these tariffs were important. They stated that trading partners had treated the United States unfairly for decades, like they were ripping off America. The tariffs were meant to protect American workers and companies. These new tariffs created friction in global trade. It became harder and more expensive for countries to sell their goods to the United States. Many governments around the world were unhappy with these actions. They felt the tariffs were unfair. As a result, some countries started planning their own tariffs on American goods. The European Union, for example, prepared a list of possible new taxes on American products if talks and negotiations did not lead to an agreement. This showed that trade relationships were becoming tense. The effects were seen in the world economy too. Financial markets, where money and company shares are traded, became nervous and unsteady. The value of the American dollar went down compared to other world currencies. Experts warned that these trade problems could slow down economic growth around the world. There was even talk about an increased risk of a recession, a difficult time when economies shrink. The government said these tariffs were like necessary medicine for the country's economy, linking them to the America First plan. However, the exact final goals of the tariff policy were not always clear to everyone. While the tariffs were put in place, the administration also started talks with many different countries. They aimed to negotiate new, separate trade deals. Sometimes the government adjusted the plans, changing how high the tariffs were or when they would begin. This created uncertainty for businesses and other governments. Allies like Japan were surprised by the size and speed of the new tariffs. They had to quickly figure out how to respond. The difficult trade situation made some observers wonder if countries might look for other partners. There was discussion about whether some nations might try to build stronger trade relationships with China, even though China was a major target of the American tariffs. China presented itself as an alternative for countries feeling pressured by the new American trade policies. These events showed a big shakeup in how countries traded with each other. 4. Talking with old friends. The relationship between the United States and its old friends started to change. Many countries that were close partners for a long time felt worried. The new administration had different ideas about working together. This was especially true for allies in Europe. NATO is a group of countries in Europe and North America that promise to help protect each other. It has been very important for many years. But the administration said some European countries in NATO were not paying enough for their own defense. They said these countries were freeloading off the United States. This kind of talk made European leaders feel uneasy. The German Chancellor, Friedrich Merz, said he was concerned about the relationship. He said it felt like it was 5 minutes to midnight for Europe, meaning it was a very serious time. Because of these worries, some European countries started to think differently about their safety. Countries like Germany and France talked about spending more money on their own armies. They wanted to build more of their own weapons and military equipment. This way, they would not need to rely so much on weapons from the United States. They might buy fewer American arms in the future. The relationship with Canada, the country north of the United States, also became difficult. The administration made comments suggesting Canada should become part of the U.S. This angered many Canadians. Canada started looking for stronger connections with Europe for trade and security. People in Canada felt they could not depend on the U.S. as much as before. Allies in Asia were also worried. South Korea felt nervous about the administration's policies. There were even threats about taking U.S. soldiers out of South Korea. This was a big concern because South Korea depends on the U.S. alliance for protection, especially from North Korea. Because of this uncertainty, some people in South Korea started talking more about maybe needing their own nuclear weapons. Japan, another important friend in Asia, was also on edge. The new trade tariff surprised Japan, and the government there was trying hard to figure out how to respond. All these changes made relationships less certain. Some experts thought that if relations with the U.S. became too difficult, some of these old friends might start building closer economic ties with China. The first 100 days showed that many long-term friendships were being tested. Countries were thinking hard about their future relationships with the United States. 5. New talks about Russia and Ukraine. The way America looks at the long war between Russia and Ukraine changed a lot in the first 100 days of President Trump's second time as president. For 3 years, the United States gave strong help to Ukraine to fight against Russia. Now the plan from the White House is very different. This change has surprised many countries. President Trump wants to end the war quickly. He believes the best way is through talking. So he started direct talks involving himself, Russia, and Ukraine. The government says President Trump is working fast to bring both sides to a meeting place to negotiate peace. He even met with Ukraine's leader, President Volodymyr Zelensky, at the White House near the end of February. Some news reported that this meeting was difficult and involved a loud argument. This new plan makes many people worried, especially America's friends in Europe. Some allies, the countries that usually work closely with America, are nervous. They fear President Trump might pressure Ukraine. They worry he might tell Ukraine it must give up some of its land to Russia to make peace happen. Losing territory is a very painful thing for any country. These allies, many in the NATO group, are concerned because President Trump seems to want a better relationship with Russia's leader, President Vladimir Putin. Helping Ukraine keep all its land seems less important to the new government. The American government also seems to understand Russia's side of the story more than before. Reports suggest President Trump has accepted some of Russia's explanations about why the war started. This is a big change from the past policy. It feels like America is moving away from its old friends who strongly support Ukraine and maybe moving a little closer to Russia. This change fits President Trump's idea of America first. He decides what is best for America in each situation, sometimes looking at world problems like business deals, not based on old friendships or rules. Many people inside America are watching this change carefully too. A recent study showed that more than half of all Americans feel President Trump is already too close to Russia. Even some people in his own Republican Party, about 1 out of every 5, feel this way. They are not comfortable with America being so friendly with Russia, especially while the war continues. These new talks and the changing relationship with Russia show a major shift in how America acts in the world. It raises questions about the future of old agreements and partnerships. 6. Ideas about new land. President Trump also talked about getting new land for the United States during his first 100 days back in office. This kind of talk about making the country bigger was unusual for modern American presidents. He mentioned several places. One place was Greenland. Greenland is a very large island near North America. It is part of the country of Denmark, but it has its own government for many things. President Trump said strongly that the United States would get Greenland. He also talked about Canada, the large country north of the United States. He suggested that Canada did not have much reason to be its own country and should become part of the U.S. Maybe it could be the 51st state. This idea made people in Canada angry. Another idea was about the Panama Canal. This important waterway connects two big oceans. The U.S. controlled it for many years but gave control back to the country of Panama in 1999. President Trump mentioned taking back control of the canal. He even suggested an idea for Gaza, a place that has seen terrible war. He proposed that the U.S. could take control of Gaza. Then they could change it into a beautiful place for holidays, like a resort. These ideas surprised many people around the world. Leaders in other countries were worried. The leader of Denmark, Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen, spoke about the Greenland idea. She asked how Denmark could trust the United States, its close friend for many years, when it talked about taking Danish land using pressure and threats. She said this was about the way countries worked together. Some experts watched these events. They wondered if President Trump really planned to do these things. He did not give details about how the U.S. could get these lands. Maybe these strong words were just ideas for talks. Perhaps he used these extreme ideas to help him get other things he wanted in discussions with other countries. But even if they were just words, this kind of talk could change how other countries saw the United States. Some countries took the words very seriously and felt they needed to be careful. 7. Changes at home in America. The first 100 days of President Trump's second time in office saw big changes in how America dealt with other countries. But important things were also happening inside the United States. These domestic changes, the changes happening at home, also caught the eye of people watching from around the world. People in other countries, including leaders and regular citizens, watched these events. Some felt worried. They saw these actions as possible signs of problems within American democracy. What happened inside America seemed connected to its actions outside the country. The way the government acted at home raised questions for observers internationally. They wondered about the direction the country was taking. For example, the president sometimes spoke very strongly about judges. He criticized judges who made decisions he did not like. This kind of talk about the country's legal system was unusual for a president. People in other countries heard these comments and wondered what it meant for the rule of law in America. Universities also felt pressure. There were reports that the government wanted universities to change how they worked or what they taught. This made some people worry about freedom of thought and education in the U.S. This issue was also discussed in other countries. The government also focused on immigration and people coming into the country. There was a big effort to deport more migrants, meaning sending them back to where they came from. One specific action got a lot of attention. Some migrants were sent to a prison in El Salvador known for being very tough. This was part of the larger plan to increase deportations. These actions showed a very strict approach to immigration. All these things happening inside America affected how the world saw the country. A nation's image is not just about its foreign policy. It is also about how it treats its own people and its own systems, like courts and schools. The strong words about judges, the pressure on universities, and the tough actions on migrants all contributed to the international view of the United States during this period. These domestic events were part of the bigger picture of change. 8. Looking to the future. The first 100 days of President Trump's second time as president brought many big changes to the world. His America First plan seemed stronger than it was 8 years ago. He started a large trade war with new taxes on goods from other countries. He also reduced money the U.S. gives to help other nations. He said unfriendly things about old friends like NATO countries in Europe. At the same time, he seemed to agree more with Russia about the war in Ukraine. These actions surprised many people, even those who worked with him before. These first months have made many governments around the world feel unsure. They feel worried because President Trump's actions can be hard to guess. Friends of the U.S. and countries that are not friends feel this way. Nobody is sure what will happen next or how far President Trump plans to go. This feeling of not knowing is a big problem for world relations. Some leaders say it is a very large change in how the world works together. Because they feel unsure, some countries are starting to think differently about their own safety and future. Some friends in Europe are talking about building more of their own weapons. They want to depend less on weapons from the U.S. In South Korea, there is more talk about maybe needing their own nuclear weapons. Canada is trying to build stronger connections with Europe for trade and safety. There is also talk that some countries might start working more closely with China, especially for trade, because they feel they cannot rely on the US as much as before. Are these changes going to last for a long time? Some experts think that the problems caused now could be difficult to fix. Even if a different president is chosen in 2028, countries might not go back to the old ways. They might keep the changes they are making now to protect themselves from sudden policy shifts in the future. Other experts say it might still be possible to repair relationships if President Trump changes his plans, but many think this is not likely to happen. The way countries have worked together for many years, often with the US in a leading position, is being questioned. This system was based on ideas like free trade and respect for borders. President Trump does not seem to like these old ways as much. He often sees world matters like business deals. The future of this world system and America's part in it is now less clear. Some people worry that the US is losing its position as a world leader. The White House says these actions are needed. They say President Trump is fixing problems left by the last president and making America stronger. They point to talks about the Ukraine war and actions against China on trade as examples of strong leadership. However, many people, including some Americans, worry about being too close to Russia and about the new ideas for taking land. Overall, after the first 100 days, the main feeling is uncertainty. Big questions remain about how America's relationships with other countries will change in the long run. The actions taken now could shape the world for many years to come, but exactly how is still unknown. The damage to trust might be hard to measure and difficult to repair.